Let us call the House to order to consider the motion that this House would abolish the death penalty. For the government side will be Andrew. For the opposition, Tien. Rolling.
So the House wishes to abolish the death penalty. This proposition is to be presented as a false case in the affirmative. Some definitions that are shared with the opposition were death penalty will be the punishment of execution administered to someone legally convicted of felony or capital crime. Inhumane, lacking compassion or misery. It's usually regarded as cruel. Abolish is to formally put an end to a system, practice, or institution. Life sentence will be a punishment for a felon of imprisonment for life. And deter will be to discourage from doing something, typically by instilling doubt or fear of the consequences. So what is the problem? First problem is there's no consistency in how the death penalty is issued. John Donahue of Stanford Law in October 2011 issued a research where he studied capital punishment in Connecticut and found no consistency. In the 32 most horrendous crimes, only one of them actually ended up receiving the death penalty. Connecticut, a year later, decided to eradicate the death penalty. The death penalty is supposed to be served for the most violent criminals, and in December of 2011, CNN cited that Gary Ridgway, a serial killer of 48 people, actually got out of the death penalty because he gave evidence of the remains of the bodies he killed. There are too many people that are innocent that are being sentenced to death row. Samuel Gross from the University of Michigan in 2014 found that 4% of the death row prisoners were declared innocent, which indicates that there's a possibility that we execute about 4% innocent people because after they're killed, nobody really follows up. Race plays a major role in determining who receives the death penalty. The Criminal Justice Report in 2014 found that 76% of executions take place with a white victim versus 15% when the victim is African American. Harris County, Texas, which has the highest execution rate amongst basically all states except for Texas, is 3 times more likely to issue a death penalty case when the defendant is African American rather than white. There's no evidence of crime being deterred by issuing the death penalty. Colorado has a lower murder rate, yet they have abolished the death penalty, and Texas has a fairly high murder rate, and they still have the death penalty in practice, according to The Guardian in 2013. There's no evidence of... The Declaration of Independence explicitly states that the government's role is to protect the 3 inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, we're giving the state the role to abolish and eradicate life. How big is the problem? Between 1976 and 1982, when the new death penalty system was established, 6 people were executed. However, since then, 1,385 people have been executed, according to the Death Penalty Information Center in 2014. The costs are higher for death penalty cases versus non-death penalty cases, according to Forbes article in May of 2014. The study by the Kansas Judicial Council found that the cost of defending a death penalty case is twice as much as defending a non-capital punishment case. Kansas, for example, has the cost per case is about $50,000 for capital punishment and $25,000 for standard inmate. The Washington State Bar Association says cases involving the death penalty cost about $470,000 more than ones that don't. That's litigation cost. And by the numbers, the annual cost of the death penalty in California is $137 million, and lifetime incarceration is only $11 million. Why do we have the problem? A third of the country has already abolished the death penalty. However, it can't be eradicated federally because capital punishment belongs to the state, according to the U.S. Bureau of International Information Program. private firms are unwilling to take on the burden of representing death penalty cases because they are long, strenuous, and these attorneys are often overworked and underpaid, according to the ACLU in 2014. So these criminals aren't getting the best representation they can get. The solution that I put forth is that we should make a shift from capital punishment to life in prison without the possibility of parole. By removing the expenses that go into capital punishment cases, the money can be inputted into the prison system to house criminals, so there wouldn't be an increase in cost. The most dangerous criminals could then be held in solitary confinement, so they have no access to the public if they are indeed that dangerous. This can deter crime just as well because according to the CNN political ticker, a survey conducted showed that about almost 50 people would actually prefer the death penalty over lifetime imprisonment. So there would be no change in preference. Will the solution work? Abolishing the death penalty would attempt to reduce some of the discrimination, and it would reduce the risk of taking innocent lives that come with the death penalty. The United Kingdom has had the death penalty abolished for about 30 years, and they're facing their lowest homicide rate. States that still employ, such as Texas, have significantly higher homicide rates than those who have abolished it, like Colorado. And there are cases like Michael Pissarro, who killed his daughter in hopes of getting the death penalty because he did not fear. He was hoping for the state-assisted suicide. The advantage of this proposal would be that the justice system is no longer has the possibility of killing an innocent person on death row. The state no longer has the right to take a life because the state's primary role is to preserve life. Millions of dollars can be saved in litigation and appeals and housing death row inmates, which cost twice as much in states like Kansas, as previously mentioned. These murderers have a chance of becoming reformed while in prison, whereas once you've killed them, there's no chance of reform. Some disadvantages to my proposal, as some would argue, is that keeping people in prison for life costs more than getting rid of them through the death penalty. However, as seen with California, those costs accumulated through litigation and housing these death row inmates will cost significantly more than just lifetime in prison. The death penalty deters crime more effectively than life in prison is what the opposition also states. However, it's not an accurate statement because when compared to a life sentence, crime is deterred to the same degree. Also, as stated above, half Americans would actually prefer the death penalty. On balances, after removing the risk of killing an innocent person and the prejudice in the justice system, we should make the shift towards lifetime incarceration without possibility of parole, and there'll be more money in the justice system to work with. After reviewing the evidence, I urge you to vote in favor of the proposition. I now stand for cross-examination.
Thank you very much. That was 6:39. The chair will now recognize the leader of the opposition for cross-examination not to exceed 3 minutes in length. You may begin.
Hi. I have a question for you. This is yes or no question. The first question, are you willing to pay a plenty of money to support a life sentence prisoner who killed your family or anyone you know, or that person also killed 3 or 5 or even 100 people?
Lifetime incarceration would have the same cost, so we would not be paying more money to keep them alive.
The second question, are you sure that the murderer will feel guilty about what they did when you put them in the life sentence?
If they're dead, they won't feel guilty either.
And the third question, the victim will never be able to contact with their family again, will never be able to see or talk with anyone. However, the murderer still can eat every day, live healthy every day by our money. They do not need to work but still be supported. Do you think life is too easy and unfair for them? It's too easy for them and unfair for the victim?
No, actually, life in prison leads to deterioration of the mental and physical states of the prisoners.
Okay, the next question. You say that the most dangerous criminal could be held in the confinement so that they could pose no danger to people. With this solution, do you want to build a new confinement or upgrade the old prison?
No, there's already prisons that have solitary confinement where prisoners that are the most dangerous are held alone, so there would not be any need for an increase.
And you say that one of your problems is that death penalty is supposed to be reserved for the most violent criminal. However, they usually get out of it by either making plea deal or getting multiple life sentences. And you also gave us an example. Do you think, I don't know what is your point, because like if a murderer gets a life sentence And if they just do a plea deals or get them or do something, and they still can get out of the jail. They do not need to leave the prison forever.
But they do provide evidence and support for the government. It's a two-way agreement.
Thank you.
Okay, you had 42 seconds left.
Any more questions?
Okay, thank you. Chair will now recognize the leader of the opposition for her speech her constructive speech not to exceed 7 minutes in length.
Hi, I'm Ting,
Hi,
and
Ting.
I'm standing for the opposition. This proposition is to be presented as a policy case in the negative definition. I totally agree with the proposition definition. However, I have some addition to that benefit. According to the CNN 2013, there are 5 methods to end prisoner life: lethal injection, electrocution, gas chamber, hanging, and firing squad. And those methods are very efficient in killing the condemned before he or she is able to kill it. What is the problem? First problem, U.S. murder rate higher than nearly all other developed countries. According to the FBI, in U.S., the 2012 murder rate 4.7 murder per 100,000 people. The comparable rate is 0.4 in Japan, 0.8 in Germany. According to the FBI, 2012, there were nearly 44% of murder were reported in the South, the most popular region, and 21% were reported in the West. The second problem, the increasing of victims. Victims are killed in terrifying ways. According to American History and Life, in 1910, a female victim, Miss Griffin, was found dead after missing 5 months. And the body was missing its head, genital organs, and every single one of its bones. Moreover, many murders did not kill only one person. Some of them already have planned to kill 2, 3, or even 130 people. According to the death penalty, Rodney Ucla is a serial killer who is on death row in San Quentin for murdering 5 women in the 1970s, but who has subsequently admitted to 30 more murders. He also under indictment in New York for even more murders, and is believed to be responsible for 130 killings in the United States. Society's safety on dangerous state. According to the U.S. Comm, there were 15 cities reported to have more than 100 murders in 2012. The murder rate opposed to murder totals were higher elsewhere in the U.S., and the FBI report said in Chicago, one of the states do not support death penalty. The number of murders are increasing from 431 in 2011 to 500 murders in 2012. How big is the problem? Americans have to pay tax to build more prisons, provide healthcare and food for those life imprisonment prisoners who kill their family, friends, or neighbors. According to the article Days Without End, the total life sentence population in the United States is about 141,000 people, or about twice the size of the entire incarcerated population in Japan. If a 30-year-old murderer was sentenced to life without parole and lived to the age of 65, the 40-year cost of housing, feeding and keeping them secure would amount to 1.5 million a piece without factoring in the effect of inflation. According to the research of Roberts, one blind sentence prisoner said, "It may sound weird, but the actual physical part of being here is really easy. It almost makes you feel like you are a baby because you are feeding and your bill are taken care of. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to get out of bed in the morning if you don't want to. Everything is provided." Why do we have the problem? Many states do not accept the death penalty. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, there are 18 states against the death penalty. According to the CNN in the FBI 2012 crime statistics, Chicago had murder rate of 18.7 for every 100,000 people. Many crimes do not scare life sentence as much as the capital punishment. According to the Flame Horse, Mr. Bundy, who was arrested by killing a woman and a kid, he defended himself in recent interview by blaming a disease for causing his uncontrollable and focusing him to think of women as objects, not human. He claimed that without a disease, he would have been a good person. When that didn't work, he pretended to come clean and tell police where the bodies of unfound victims were. It was obvious that he feared being put to death. He did his best to change it. This meant that he did not fear life in prison, at least not as much as he feared capital punishment. What is the solution? The first solution? Do not abolish death penalty, which is a warning for other people. According to the death penalty, if murder is sentenced to death and is guilty, potential murder will try before killing for fear of losing their own life. Second solution, let's have a better definition for who should die. Mass murder, terrorists, sadists, serial killer, contract killer, or the paid assassin deserve to die. The third solution, decrease wrongful risk execution by improving examination techniques, DNA test. DNA is an essential molecule that is part of every cell in our body. DNA is unique. 21 condemned inmates have been released in 1993, including 7 from the state of Illinois alone by DNA test, according to the Death Penalty Information Center. The third, building more resource center will reinvestigate capital death can also decrease wrongful risk execution. Next solution, we should make the capital punishment system cheaper. Saving money by decrease the amount of time for a serious murder lived in prison. After reinvestigation and DNA examination, the death penalty for the murder should occur instead of letting them living in prison and provide them the health care and food for almost 20 years, according to the Death Penalty Information Center. Second, choosing less cost killing style such lethal injection, which only costs $86. Will the solution work? Yes. In 1973, it says employed and analyzed that produced research showing that for every one inmate who was killed, 7 lives were spared because others were deterred from committing murder. States that have high murder rate would have even higher rate if they did not use the death penalty. We should make the capital punishment system cheaper. After decreasing the unnecessary cost, the tax will be decreasing either, which means Americans can give them money to spend on educating the next generation or developed economy. What are the advantages? After eliminating on capital murder, prison breaker, and chain to prevent the crime will be totally prevented, then Americans are able to live in a safe state society. Decreasing wrongful risk execution, number of innocent crime will decrease, and the justice will again just from the public. What are disadvantages? By developing reinvestigation center, we can reduce the wrongful risk of execution. However, we cannot remove completely 100% innocent people from wrongful arrested. The reinvestigation process will take time, which will increase the number of months a year when the capital murder are staying in prison. On the unbalance, nowadays, the DNA test have to reduce the wrongful risk of arresting innocent people, which is the most concern of America. Therefore, the number of wrongful executions will decrease, and the capital punishment will be put in the right on the right criminal. As a result, Americans should vote for death penalty, which is not only a strong punishment, but also a warning for the people who need to think twice before they want to kill someone. And I'm standing for the
Cross-examination. Thank you. That's time. The chair will now recognize the cross-examination not to exceed 3 minutes in length.
So you refer to Connecticut as a state that has a death penalty, correct? Are you aware that it was abolished 3 years ago in Connecticut? Are you aware that it was abolished almost 3 years ago in Connecticut?
Yes.
Do you believe that the death penalty deters crime?
I didn't say the death penalty deters crime. I say that you met the person if he want or she want to kill someone, you think twice before they do it, and that maybe we decrease the number of victims.
Okay, and you also stated that the U.S. has a higher murder rate than all recently other developed countries, correct?
Yes.
Are you aware that all those countries all have abolished death penalty except for Japan?
Yes, but I think that is the difference between about the society. U.S. had the higher the number of immigrants come to the countries, and therefore you cannot compare another country to the U.S. because U.S. not only the American, the truly American live there, there's only people from another country who also maybe a criminal from another country come to the U.S.
Did you know that housing an inmate that is not a death row inmate costs half the price?
Yep.
Okay. And you stated that education is a factor in lowering crime, correct?
Without the education,
Affects crime.
we don't see that.
Okay. And you believe that the death penalty is the most feared type of punishment, correct?
Yes.
Even though there was a study that showed 50% of people would actually prefer the death penalty over.
Actually, I have a statistic. According to the statistic range, 68% of the US population are fear of death, and that percent can include people who want to kill someone in the future.
Right, they fear death, but they would prefer death over lifetime incarceration. Do you believe that it takes? Do you believe that the time it takes for appeals process is too long?
Yes, that's why I had a solution. After DNA test and reinvestigation, we should limit the time for the capital murder live in prison.
Right. So you want to lower the appeals time, but you want to also reopen reinvestigations.
Yes.
Okay.
The reinvestigation maybe take a little bit of time, but they can make sure that they know wrongful risk execution.
Right. And you said we can't guarantee that innocent people will not be executed wrongly, correct? There's no guarantee?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
But it's, I saw that could be lower number of people, innocent people.
So with your plan, it's acceptable to kill innocent people from time to time as long as most of the bad people are killed?
At first, the capital murder needs to stay in the prison at least.
That's time. Thank you very much. The chair will now entertain a rebuttal, a four-part refutation from the leader of the government for not to exceed 4 minutes in length.
So the opposition states that the only way to ensure the prevention of recidivism is through the death penalty. I disagree, however, because if somebody's issued to life without the possibility of parole, they are just as likely not to commit crime because they also have no access to the public. There are things like solitary confinement that will keep the most dangerous criminals away from people and recommitting crime. Therefore, you should vote in favor of the abolition of the death penalty.
Good.
The opposition also stated that the death penalty comes with financial incentives as opposed to life in prison. I disagree, however, as seen through the case in Kansas, the Kansas Judicial Council, the cost of defending a case that involves capital punishment costs twice as much as ones that do not. Also, there are people that are unable to get their own attorney, so most of this funding comes from the state to give them an attorney. Again, therefore, you should vote in favor of abolishing the death penalty. The opposition states that the death penalty is universally the most feared type of punishment. Albeit, I disagree, however, because even though death is feared, she said by 68% of people, the death penalty is actually still opposed to a lifetime incarceration. Texas, which also has the highest execution number, also has one of the highest murder rates compared to those who still have the death penalty. That's another reason for you to vote in favor of abolishing the death penalty. The opposition stated that there's no way to ensure that all innocent people will not be wrongfully convicted. I disagree. If we do abolish the death penalty completely, then we remove the possibility of killing innocent people. Also, just last month, Susan Mellon was released after being wrongfully in jail for 17 years, thus still giving her a chance to enjoy her life. However, if she was issued the death penalty, she would have never been given a second chance. Another reason yet you should vote for the death penalty. The opposition also stated that we should keep the death penalty as their main proposition. I disagree because the state's role is to preserve life and keep peace. However, the death penalty gives the state the opportunity to take this unalienable right and eradicate it for some criminals. The goal of the state is to preserve peace, and with the death penalty, they are taking away lives, which goes against the Declaration of Independence, which was the founding document of our country. The death penalty should be abolished because it is not the role of the justice system to decide who lives and who doesn't. There's been evidence, as in Texas, who has the highest execution rate, yet it still has one of the highest murder rates, showing that there's no effect. United Kingdom abolished death penalty 30 years ago, and they're looking at some of their lowest violent crime rates. Seeing all this, I urge you to vote in favor of abolishing the death penalty.
Okay. You got a minute 12 left if you wanted to summarize or use more of it. You don't? Fine. Okay. Okay, that brings us to the final refutation, four-step refutation from the leader of the opposition.
The proposition say that there is no evidence of crime being deterred by ensuing death penalty, I disagree because according to statistics, 68% of U.S. population are fear of death, and that percent can include people who want to kill someone in the future. And at the example of Mr. Bunky, who is serious murder, who was arrested by killing a woman and a kid, he defended himself in recent interview by blaming the deceased for causing his uncontrolled labor. He attempted that without the deceased, he would have been a good person. And in this example, the research found out that when that didn't work, he pretended to complain and tell police where the body of unfound victim were. So it's for fear that he feared being put to death. He did his best to change it. This means that he did not feel like in prison, at least not as much as he feared capital punishment. And in addition, death penalty is also one in which makes a person think twice before the consequence before killing someone, and that can help to decrease the number of victims. Therefore, I urge you guys to vote for the opposition. The opposition say that the costs are higher for death penalty case versus non-death penalty case. I disagree, since if the government accepts my solution as developing DNA tests, building reinvestigate centers to prevent arrest of innocent people, and spend much money on them, and choosing less cost methods to end the prisoner life will make the system cheaper. On the contrary, if life sentences are accepted, the costs are increasing because of the need of building more prison. And you know that now we do not have enough prison for the people who violate the law. And the proposition say that race play a major role when determining who receives the death penalty, and I think that there is no relationship actually about the race or fact of choosing death penalty of life sentence. I believe that Americans are always ready to work harder and harder.
Hold your paper down a little so we can see your face. Thank you.
To support prisoners who can still be useful for the society after they get out of prison. However, paying taxes to support a capital murder life with health care and food on his or her life is not necessary. Because you cannot sue 100%, you cannot sue if that person will feel guilty for what they did or not. And in addition, life in prison is too easy for them, as I say. Life sentence, prison say that life in prison is too easy because he provide everything, even his bill or even the food. He don't need to work. And no, therefore, I urge as a result, Americans should vote for death penalty, which is not only the strongest punishment but also warning for other people who need to think twice before they want to kill someone. If I urge you guys to vote for the opposition.
Thank you. Okay, could you move together to the center for the decision so we can see you react to the people's comments? Carefully look over your decision. Fill out the proposition, the name of the proposition, the two rhetors. Sign your ballot and send it to the front. Would you collect them, please? Who's collecting them?